Well, the pump just died on our main rendering machine for all of our video production on YouTube. You can tell if you've never had a pump failure, this should be mounted the other way, ignore this, the tube should be at the bottom. But if you've never had a pump failure, you can touch the tubes and they're very hot. The liquid is well over 60 C, which is spec, so it's probably permeating the hell out of these tubes and maybe melting some plastic. That pump is no good. The entire liquid cooler has to go. We need a much better cooled solution. So before getting to our solution for this mishap, this coverage is brought to you by CyberPower PC, who make the new Cyber Gaming XL PC. You can learn more at the link below, including learning about their invertible motherboard tray layout. So here's what we got. We have our render system in an H440, which at the time was available, so I used it. Terrible breathing for the type of work that this system does. There's some 50 whatever generic Asetek liquid cooler unbranded on here. Works fine, keeps the CPU at 40 C when it works. Currently we're hitting like 70 to 100 Celsius, and that's not good. We have 3 hard drives in RAID that are probably getting pretty hot anyway, so it's not gonna be a bad idea to move. 2 SSDs that are covered in dust, and the system's been deployed for maybe a year or so. It's got a Titan X Maxwell in it, so that should date us back about a year. So I think the plan is to just move this whole thing into a new case and rebuild it all with a new liquid cooler and convert the Titan X into a liquid cooled Titan X and then overclock everything and see if our performance improves at the same time as fixing this thermal nightmare, because I think if we do all of that, we should see a performance gain in Premiere that's actually somewhat substantial. So I guess we'll just go ahead and start unplugging things. But the Premiere change is one we can actually benchmark, because we have log files of everything we've rendered anytime recently. And that means we can check that versus the overclocked version. Now, I will say, compared to our normal benchmarks, this will be very simple in that I am not going to run it and isolate one variable at a time, which is what you should do. I'm going to change everything all at once, which is what you shouldn't do. But it's not. That was a side panel. Nothing's hurt. But it's not an official benchmark. Oh, that is a lot of dust. So we're not going to show. Not an official benchmark, so it doesn't matter. All that matters is if our use case gets better. Let's get this out of here. Excuse me, Snowflake. Excuse me. Okay, that's good. So this is the system that we showed on camera about a year ago when it was built. This is an NZXT H440. It's an okay case, but not for this. We're doing video production, so it is constantly rendering or preparing to render or video editing, and that means it's under a lot of load all the time, or rendering animations. So this setup, just to briefly go over it while I'm getting over dust allergies, because it hasn't been maintained as well as it should have been. We have 2 RAID SSDs. They are striped, not mirrored. It's for the OS. I don't care if they fail. We just reinstall the OS. And then 3 WD red drives in a RAID 5, and that's just for production with some redundancy, and then everything gets cloned over to a NAS later. The system itself is a 4960X, I want to say, which for video production, by the way, if you're a Premiere user, that's better than a lot of the modern CPUs. Premiere doesn't give a damn about your cores. It cares about the clock rate. So if we're at 4 cores and a high clock rate, that's really going to be better than most other things. The rest of this, I should ground myself, because this is a Titan X Maxwell, which is a good card still. But it's hitting the thermal throttle points. I ran some tests before we tore it apart the other day, and so it's hitting the thermal throttle. We can improve its performance by liquid cooling it and make it quieter, and then we can also maybe overclock it a bit. The only problem here is that the space it was in is pretty damn cramped, if you didn't notice. And so what that means is that we're gonna need better cooling, which is not really gonna be achievable with just like. So here's the problem: just cooling the stuff better fixes the problem of the stuff in the case getting hot, but it's still gonna dump heat into the room. So if we overclock everything, suddenly the CPU is gonna generate maybe 50 watts more of heat. The GPU is gonna generate more heat, and just because you have better cooling, although you may improve efficiency to a point that there's less leakage or something like that in the case of the GPU, just because you have better cooling and your diode temperatures are lower in ADA or something, doesn't mean the temperature is lower of what the device is outputting. It just means it's being more efficiently displaced elsewhere, which would be the radiator and liquid cooler. So it's going to put more heat into the room, but we'll figure that out when we get to it. I need to get a screwdriver, and we need to figure out what case we're going to move into next. So we got a screwdriver first. So knew everything's in order, I think. Just completely rebuild all of this. I need a case. We have some cases down here. Unfortunately, this is Mini ITX. That doesn't do us any good. Behind it is an S340 Elite, which has terrible cooling performance, and I don't want it for this particular build anyway. I don't know what that is. Cullinan, maybe? That looks like a Rosewell Cullinan. Core P3, which I really do want to use, but I want to use it for a test bench instead, not for a render machine, and it's open air, which I don't want on the floor. In-wind thing that came in too late for the Christmas build. So the main options really are this Corsair case, which is a 600C, and it's inverted, as you can see. The motherboard layout's inverted. Power supply's at the top. Right side is your side panel to access the board. So I like this case. The problem is I don't want to push this against the other wall from where it was, because then we won't be able to easily access components. And we've got limited options for liquid cooling, like pretty limited. I don't want to mount a 360 rad down there if we have one, which we should have a few. I would rather mount it somewhere it makes sense, like the front or the back or the top or something. So that's a big maybe. It's kind of wide anyway. This case, well, let me just absolutely no, bad. No in-wind 805 Infinity. Absolutely not in this hot system. Everything will melt, nothing will overclock. This is not the correct case carrying technique, by the way. Okay, so this is, let me just put this on the table. So this is the Silverstone PM01. We just saw their PM01 FX at CES. I told them there, as I've been telling them for a month or two, that I will review this case. And I do want to do that. But if we use this for the build, we're not going to be reviewing it, because I'm not going to do thermal tests on it with the normal case testing platform. We'd just be doing the build, and then whatever tests we do for the render machine, which is not comparable to the rest of the tests we do. So it wouldn't get reviewed, unfortunately, but it would be in these two videos, so that's fine. It's big, has plenty of space for what we need. Ooh, I need to make sure it has drive support. I didn't think about that. But 3 intake fans, which will be enough to cool everything. Big exhaust fan, and I can probably get rid of that maybe and put in a 360 rad up here, like a Big Water 3 from Thermaltake, which is a cooler that I really want to use in a build and haven't. But the new problem is, are we going to be able to use this with 3 hard drives and 2 SSDs? Because that is a big limitation. Okay, so what's our option here? Tony, I'm sorry, I should know more about your product. 3 hard drive cages. Is it in front of a fan? Oh, it's in front of a fan. That's awesome. That's really rare. No one thinks you should cool hard drives anymore, but in this kind of system you should, because they're going to be running non-stop at 100% load for some of our production tasks. So that looks good. 2 SSDs right there. I would love for them to be visible through the side panel. Maybe we can mount them on that wall. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's meant to be used that way. This wall right here. might be able to mount them on this, but that was a screw. But no, we're not gonna be able to do that. I need huge screws to do that, and then the cables will bite. So I guess we're doing it all in the back. Okay, so that's our case. We need a liquid cooler for the CPU and for the GPU, because I'm going to convert the Titan X Maxwell into a Titan X Maxwell hybrid. So we'll use the EVGA kit for that, the cooler with the protrusion on it that I like and have worked with 1,000 times. We're probably going to throw that out or send it back to Asetek for analysis or something, because this is definitely no good. I think here's what I think happened. I think this fan failed because it was stopped, and I think that fan failed when it was doing rendering or editing, and the liquid couldn't cool down, and it reached 60 plus, probably closer to 70, 80 C on the liquid, and that probably made the liquid permeate the tubes to a point that we're just sucking air through the pump now. So it may not actually be the cooler's fault, maybe the fan's fault, which that is a reused fan anyway, but I need a cooler. So your shots are unsteady. You guys should shoot on rails. I know, we do. Oh, nice. Okay. These fans look awful. Thermal take. Cool all your life. Okay, so making fun of Thermal Take and their slogan aside, their P3 is a good case that we can't use for this, and their Big Water is a good cooler that is 360 that we can use for this, and this is another Asetek pump, which is fine. I'm familiar with those and have all the mounting for them, so that'll be easy to work with. Definitely can't do that. We're gonna have to mount it with the tubes at the back. The PMO1 has this little shroud cover that you can pull back. It's actually kind of cool. It's smart because you get still the full cover. It doesn't look like crap, which a lot of these cases do when they try to do something like this. It actually looks pretty good, and it's functional in that we can pull it aside and put the radiator in there. But I don't know that the tubes will be long enough. Oh no, let's not do that. That might work, but let's not do that. So radiator in the top. It can be all exhaust, and then EVGA video card cooler back here, which I need that. So now I need an EVGA hybrid cooler, liquid cooler, which I do have an entire tub of them that you saw in our Christmas build video, but I also have this one that's been unused for a while down here. This is really cool. This is one of the things that makes me really happy about what we do. It's a box of 1080, 1070, and 1060 spares. These are just like screws and coolers pulled off of video cards we've torn down, and it comes in handy regularly because I lose a screw or something, and I can pull one out of there. So this, I believe, is a complete kit. I've stolen a few screws out of it, which sounds like me. And there's the coolers in there. It looks unused, so we're gonna grab that. Does the Big Water only have 2 fans? Where's the 3rd fan? That's weird. All right, that has to be torn down. Video card. I'm trying to keep the SSDs connected to the same port on the board that they are, lest there be any issues. Here's our motherboard. This memory was once good. It's actually mismatched though, different timings, so we had to manually tune them. It gives us 32 gigabytes. I'd like to fill all slots, but this seems fine for now. So, and the CPU is just like Intel Confidential because it was an engineering sample. So that is our board. Now we gotta transplant everything. So the build is done. I've gone for function over form. I don't care how it looks. I don't need LEDs. I don't need the best cable management in the world. We just need it to work. And more importantly, it needs to be easily accessible and modifiable in the future if we add or remove things. I don't want to have to fight through a whole hour's worth of cable management just to do that. So a few things here. The fans I ended up going with are some fans that Enermax sent ages ago. They are, I think they're dust-free is what they call them, DF, dust-free fans. And basically, aside from having the strongest Velcro in the world, the fans are supposed to spin backwards once you shut the system down. I'm not sure if it works. We'll see. I'm not going to put a whole bunch of effort into testing it. But you know, if there's less dust in the system, then good enough for me. I don't need it to be the best. It just needs to be okay, and then we'll have better maintenance than previously just from that alone. So because the way the radiator's one huge, it's 360, and because it pushes against the motherboard tray, and because this case is flawed in a few ways, one of which is there's no way to mount the radiator up here. I think the PMO1FX fixes that, but I can't mount the rad up here because there's nowhere to route the tubes. There's no cutout to pass the tubes down into the main compartment, which is really not ideal. And I also couldn't put the fans up there because there's just not enough space. So we ended up doing the radiator and the fans down here. It's a push setup, and the limitation is I just can't mount it with the cables facing the motherboard like you'd want for management, because then it would take me an hour just to plug them in because there's really no room to work back there. It's way too cramped. Fan setup, 3 intake. One of them is almost entirely going to the hard drive, so 3 hard drives down there. That fan will cool those pretty well. These 2 go into the case. It's a little imbalanced because we're going to have another fan back here for the GPU once we liquid cool it, which will be soon, as in momentarily. But I'm just going to run these top 3 fans at a low RPM, and that will be plenty to keep the CPU cool. It doesn't need to be, it really doesn't need to be that cool. It just needs to be good enough for overclocking. The radiator's big, and we'll lower the RPM and push enough air through there so it won't matter. And that means we won't steal all of the intake from the front, which is what your concern would be, because with 2 front intake fans and 3 in the top and 1 in the back, the concern is that you're not going to get a whole lot of fresh, clean air that's cool to the back-mounted radiator, but just a low RPM will fix that. So that's the build. It's okay. I mean, it's a damn good computer. It's just not, it's not the flashiest thing in the world, but it really doesn't matter. Hoping to add more RAM in the future, things like that. So let's liquid cool the video card now. This is getting heavy. Ooh. now we need to put everything into the system. This 980 Ti is gonna screw me up. It's actually the Titan X Maxwell. I think we're good. I could probably move this over a little, but what a pain in the ass that would be. How do we get forward? Is there room to go forward? Yes. Oh, not really. So there's actually about 1 millimeter of space between the fan body and the tubes. So now I'm probably just gonna take like a zip tie and suspend these that way or something, just to make sure they never touch the fan and kill the fan. Okay, sweet. Hopefully the pump didn't come unplugged. That would suck, but we'll know soon. The only thing I'm not sure about is the RAID setup. It should still be fine. Cool. Yeah, so part 2 and final part probably, unless, I don't know. Next part. The next part of this video, whatever that is, will be the final part. And we're going to be talking about performance. So I ran some benchmarks before taking this apart to see temperature performance of the CPU and GPU, render time for Blender with CPU and GPU, render time for Premiere with the GPU. We'll overclock everything, test it, and see how the render times improve. And then from there, hopefully we'll have a better idea of if our production times can increase just by putting liquid on everything and overclocking it. So thank you for watching. Patreon link in the post-roll video. As always, check the site out, gamersnexus.net, for more things, and subscribe for more. I'll see you all next time.